Let's jump into the AFC North. The way this is going to work, there it is. I was going to have you rep that whenever we get to that. So I'm going to start with Joe on this one. Joe, I would like for you to start with who is your last place team in the AFC North and why?
Don't you dare.
Damn it. I hate to say this, but I have the Pittsburgh Steelers as the last place team in that division. And I mean the record. I'm not going to tell you the record until later on, but it's pretty damn close of what I have them. But I know preseason is preseason, but the two quarterbacks that they've had have had plenty of drives in the preseason, and they both haven't looked great. I think they're missing a second wide receiver, and I think just getting that running game going with Arthur Smith and are we going to trust that offense really? But I'm not saying that the Steelers this is Mike Tomlin. This is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So I'm not having Mike Tomlin's streak end, but they're going to be at the bottom. And you guys know the streak I'm talking about is a winning season or not having a losing season in 16 years. So that streak's not ending because I have them with the record good enough that they're going to be at the bottom of this division, but I have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in last place.
Mike, thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I hate trying to predict the Steelers every year because every year I look at it, I'm like, this team has to finish last, but they never do. So how can I predict them to finish last? But I have the Steelers in last by one game also, Joe. It sucks. I don't want to predict it. I'm wrong every year that I predict the Steelers to come in last. But I have to when I look at the schedule and I look at what the QB situation looks like Joe's saying. I don't think that Russell Wilson's improving a ton, guys. And all the reports that are coming out of Pittsburgh, that doesn't seem like Russell Wilson's coming in there and is going to just be old Russell Wilson. We're going to see similar stuff to maybe we saw in Denver. Like if Russell Wilson had solidified that job and there was no questions and there was no QB controversy with Justin Fields coming in behind him, maybe I'll be more confident in this offense to win some of these tight games when they have to go down and get a field goal or a touchdown at the end. But I just don't. The Steelers are probably going to be relying on this defense again, and the defense is very good, one of the best defenses in the league. But I think it gets them 8 wins or 9 wins again. I have them at 8 and 9, Joe. When I looked at the actual schedule and went game by game, a one more win to keep the streak alive. I can see that happening, obviously.
See, I got them at 9-8, Mike.
Okay, Mike. Without revealing what the team is, are they your last place team too?
That's what I was saying. Yeah. So I just jumped straight in. Steelers are last at 8 and 9.
Okay. All right. So we got 9 and 8, 8 and 9 for the Steelers. And there seems to be a lot of panic from my two co-hosts about preseason football and what's happening. And I will admit, it seems like the front office guy, Omar Khan, was like, hey, we can trade away Deontay Johnson. I believe they got a defensive back in return for him, which I think Deontay Johnson is a very good football player and a really strong wide receiver too, next to somebody who I think has great ability like George Pickens. But when you don't land Brandon Ayuk and there might not be, another player that can come out there and really fit. Like I thought Ayuk would be perfect to go with somebody like Russell Wilson, right? He's going to be able to beat one-on-one, win outside, win down the field big, and really play great in that area. So that's a miss. But the defense to me is always what carries the team, the coaching, the culture, the brotherhood. I have the Steelers at 3rd in the division. I have them at 10 and 7. I flip back and forth between 9 and 8. And I'm not going to lie, guys, I was a little bumped by the preseason coverage that I watched too. But ultimately, it's like, you guys are forgetting something. They won games last year with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. Like, these guys are an upgrade over that. Like, I think that we're forgetting how bad the offense was last year, and they still won 10 games. So when I'm like, if you can do it with that, we also didn't love what they were doing offensive coordinator-wise. I think we can all agree that Arthur Smith does do a lot of really good things in the run game. He is going to be able to find ways at a certain point to get good looks, good reads for these quarterbacks. And I just think it's been a little wonky, like not knowing who's the one. Russell has a calf injury. I don't know. The stat that Kyle put up here, that the Steelers have never finished last in the AFC North, like when they reconfigured the divisions, whatever it was, since, I want to say mid-90s, Packers used to play in like the NFC North division. Yeah, I can't see this Steelers team, the amount of talent that I see on this team, I can't see them losing, more than 8 games this year. So
we're close.
I'm going.
We're so close.
I have them losing 8 games. I have them losing 8 games.
We're close. I have them losing 9 games. So we're really close. It's tough because I agree with you, Tony. I do think it is an upgrade at quarterback. But at the same time, I don't have like any faith based off of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson's last couple of seasons either. So it's not like I have faith that those guys are coming in and just fixing things. I hope that the O-line's better. It should be, right? They just invested the first round pick in the O-line. It should be better. It's another year with the young guys too that they've been bringing in over the last couple of years. So it should be a better team. On paper, it should be. It's just such a tough division. It's hard to call. Like, even when I got to the Bengals or the Packers, like, these teams are really good teams. It's just really hard to sit here and say they're going to win more games than last year. The Bengals obviously easily will win more games than last year, but it's just hard to do that when you look at the schedule.
I just want to hear Tony's last place team. I want to hear Tony's last place team because if it is who I think it is, that team has fallen from Tony's grace quickly.
Well, we're not to that part of the show yet, but lastly, I'll say this: the quarterback stuff in the preseason, the part to me, because they do have young guys. I believe they got Frazier, the center from West Virginia. Yeah. I'm going off the top of my head, internet, so don't crush me on this. Fautanu from Washington, and then you've got Broderick Jones. You've got 3 young guys on this offensive line that it's like when they come together, when they get it figured out, if they can get enough reps and stay healthy enough, and all of a sudden start hitting their stride anytime after week 3 because they play the Chargers. So I hope they're absolute, terrible that week. But they can hit their stride in kind of the middle second half of the season. Now all of a sudden it starts getting shitty outside. Maybe Justin Fields comes in and you start, using his ability. Najee Harris, like they can put together some stuff and win some games.
Well, I think Tony, if Fields was the starter, I'd give him another win or 2. I think I would. Because I think that Mike Tomlin won't do what the Bears did and try and force Fields to be a number 1 overall pick level quarterback. They will understand the limitations there are in the passing game and use his legs as a weapon, kind of like how we saw other quarterbacks use in previous years here rushing the ball. So I think that you get Fields in there. That could help because the defense is obviously going to win them these games, and keeping the ball in the hands of the offense through that rushing attack would be the best path towards that.
All right. So we're going from these 2 guys worst. Mike, who is your first place team in the AFC North?
You got to ask that, Tony? You got to ask that question?
Let's see.
You already know who it is. Big Crud! Ooh,
there it is.
This Ravens team will always be good, man. I feel like as long as they got the right people in there with the big brains that they got, and thanks for lending us some, Baltimore. Hopefully things start turning around here. They're always going to be good. And 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure at this point, even before Lamar Jackson signed his contract, I said it, and I still believe it. I still believe it to this day that one of these years, the Ravens will win the Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. I don't know which year it's going to be, but it's going to be one of these years. I'm going to keep saying it until I'm right. They add Derrick Henry to this team. They continue to build with another draft class. And I think even you guys as Lamar Jackson haters on this screen, I know that Tony claims he's not a Lamar Jackson hater, but he's been hating on Lamar Jackson since I've known him. Now, Lamar Jackson, in the last couple of years, he's grown a ton as just a pure passer of the football. He continues to get better. Like last year, it was beautiful. It was masterful. Lamar Jackson's pass-to-run ratio.
What, you're calling me a Lamar Jackson hater?
Yes.
You are going to have to find some video of me hating on Lamar Jackson. That does not
exist. You always say Lamar Jackson can't pass, and if Lamar Jackson doesn't figure out how to pass, he's going to be out the league in 4 years or something.
That is none of that is factual. Joe, can you get my back on this one?
Tony's never said that.
Joe will take your back against me in any argument, Tony. You don't. That doesn't count.
Mike, I ask you to go and find that footage anywhere.
The only thing I remember Tony ever saying is that he felt that Lamar Jackson at one point in his career, and maybe still does, was sick, and there's something wrong with him that was causing him to miss a couple times. But there was never like that was when he was like having that bad season where he was like, remember he had to go take a shit during halftime and stuff like that.
I remember when I first met Tony. Tony was making the argument that Lamar should probably stop running the ball so much and develop his pocket passing game and all this stuff.
Oh my God.
And he's done that. He's done that.
I love Tony's reaction right there.
None of that has changed, Mike. None like.
Did you watch last season? I'm pretty sure he's like a top 5 quarterback out of the pocket last year.
But the oh my gosh. What I'm
serious.
saying is
his numbers are all top 5 out of the pocket last year. It's insane.
Agreed.
And he still is running the ball like a maniac.
What I have always said is exactly what you just said. That's not negative. Talking about how a player can become greater is not a negative on somebody. How is that negative saying that somebody
you were saying that if he doesn't do this within the next couple of years, that he was going to be out of the league.
Never.
And my whole argument was he's going to play for 15 years. He's going to play for 20 years, maybe.
If you ain't goggling it down, you a hater. That's what Mike's saying.
I can't. I cannot respond politely to what Mike just said.
Mike's
you can come at me, Tony, if you want. I have him at 12-5.
Mike's dream Super Bowl would be Lamar Jackson versus Dak Prescott. Like that would be his.
Oh my God, dream. That's almost as good as Herbert versus Prescott right there. Like that's so close to Herbert versus Prescott as far as how hard I would get if that actually happened. But I got him with 12 wins to end this argument. And I'll go and find this for Tony for next week.
Good. Please do it. Joe.
I don't know if I want to say it now. Like
first place team, Joe.
I have the Baltimore Ravens finishing first. I also think that the Baltimore Ravens could be one of the teams that drop and fail this year. There's so many question marks. Like I don't know how much I want to trust the Derrick Henry signing. Like this could be a fucking badass move, or this could be one of the worst moves we've ever seen. Like, and so in my mind, like I'm still processing it. I'm glad I still have a couple weeks until our fantasy drafts, because in my mind, I'm still debating like how, like we all know how good of Derrick Henry was in his prime, but now he's kind of he's getting there, and we know that they're going to try to give it to him, and it should help the Ravens more in the red zone, I think, and scoring touchdowns. But again, I think I think we're looking more. I just went off the schedule. Like the schedule, like looking at their schedule, I was like, this is too easy for them to go. So I gave them the same record, Mike. I gave them 12-5. I gave them 12 wins right here at the top of this division. So I have the Ravens winning.
I think the biggest thing that Derrick Henry brings here is like similar with Saquon in Philadelphia. It's going to force teams to load the box or else type situation. Like, or else we'll just run all the way down the field. So that's going to be interesting. I don't think they had that kind of dominance at the running back position. Yeah, we don't expect Derrick Henry to be prime Titans Derrick Henry, but I also don't expect the Ravens to just run him in the ground. Like Justice Hill's still going to be very involved.
And Mike really believes in Mark Andrews because he wants to trade for him in our Dynasty League. So
you shouldn't be saying that, Joe, because I don't want people to know that. I'm also trying to trade for another player on the Ravens that if they found out that information, they might raise the price. So
I already told you my price. You send me a first and we're good.
Okay, I'm not sending it first, but we'll talk about it.
We're not doing it.
That's a high price tag.
Yeah, we're not doing that, but we'll talk about it.
Let's make it 3 for 3. I have the Ravens in first place too, contrary to the fact that apparently I have the Ravens first place every year and talk a bunch of shit about Lamar Jackson. I don't fucking understand how that works.
You want to move on from this argument or you want to keep it going? Huh?
No, this is part of my argument. I'm clearly stating my case that as somebody who has the Ravens in first place every year to win the division and hates their quarterback. But beyond that, they have really good coaching. A lot of people are worried about the 3 offensive linemen that they have lost. I'm not. I think that Baltimore does a tremendous job of stocking talent that's ready to go the next year. They've done it at edge rusher. We do need to see a little bit more from a Michigan guy like David Ojabo. That would be really nice. But getting Andrew Voorhees from USC, he kind of had like a redshirt year. He's going to be able to get in there. I think that some of the spots where they lost that's tougher to replace to me are players like Jadeveon Clowney, where it's like you're getting pass rush and you're getting elite level run defense. So when you lose guys like that, it's like where's the ground made up on there? And then the only reason I didn't go higher than 11 wins is because the amount of the amount of brains, the amount of people that you lose in the room. Like if you're losing position coach here and your defensive coordinator, I think that can kind of take a toll on your overall dominance. And it's hard too for defenses to be dominant from year to year, but the Ravens have been pretty close to that. And just some of the other defensive departures, losing it at each level. Geno Stone is gone, and then Queen leaves, but they're just so good in those areas at keeping top end talent that I still just believe in this team to figure it out and win 11, 12 games every year. So Ravens, I think this is 5 years in a row now I've had the Ravens to win the division.
And you got them going to the Super Bowl?
Double checking.
You got them
Check
going to
in.
the
Is
Super
that
Bowl?
what he said?
Yeah,
You got them going
double
to the
check.
You got them going to the Super Bowl, Tony?
I don't. I'm not. I don't have my, I don't have my,
See? Caught him right there. Caught him right there. Caught him in the hate right there.
You have him going?
I think so, probably. Yeah, I haven't made my official Super Bowl pick yet, but I'll probably be going Ravens for the AFC.
Yeah, Trent Simpson. I think they lost another guy who played well for them, which was Justin Jones, I believe, or maybe I don't know. There's too many names in my head, jumbled up. But it sounds like Kyle's a fan here. He can help us out. I think they have one of the top centers in the league.
Definitely a Ravens fan. I've seen him before.
And they just do. Yeah, they do tremendous work. When I checked the depth chart this morning, it was that because I think they have Patrick McCarry, who's like the backup tackle there, but they're starting on the depth chart that I saw. It said had Roger Rosengarten as starting at tackle for them, which Ronnie Stanley's a good player, but he's got kind of in that,
can't really rely on him.
That Tyrone Smith. Yeah, I'm kind of shook because I checked my records from last year and it didn't back up the rant that I went on. But
really, what was it? Can you share with the class?
It was 10-7, and I had the Bengals winning the division. But I mean, still good, but just not to the level that I went.
Yeah,
I was trying to comprehend why I did that. Anyways, Ravens win it. I want to go to my last place team in this because Joe hinted at it earlier, the fall from grace. I have the Cleveland Browns finishing 8-9. I still love the Cleveland Browns defense, but there's just something about when I look at everything there with the Browns, I'm like, they're really trying to force the Deshaun Watson move to be a good one, which you should. If you give somebody fully guaranteed contract, you should be trying to trade for Judy. You should be trying to trade for Ayuk. You should be figuring out how we can get all the greatest players around him. But just what I've seen isn't that good. And then when I was looking at it, I was like, well, let me just take a look at a couple of the good games he did have last year. It's not that great. And then when you think about when's the last time he really played good that we can remember, 2019, 2020, we're 4 or 5 years removed from really high level Watson football. And so I just look at that. I'm like, in this division, that's the situation that you could be in. I like Cleveland. I want them to be good. I picked them to be in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. I just look at everything that's going on, and I'm like, as much as I love the defense, Myles Garrett's one of my favorite players in football. I just can't figure out how they win more games, how they win these close games. And then I started thinking about Joe. Didn't Gardner Minshew play in one of the funnest games last year? Wasn't it Cleveland and the Colts where it was 38-39 or some nuts game?
I think Myles Garrett had an MVP edge rusher day that day where he got a safety and he forced a strip sack and he was all over the field. He was just grabbing onto Minshew every play.
But then somehow the Colts, I think, still won the end of the game. Yeah. It was a nuts score where they won on a last second drive or something. And I just think back about those moments for Cleveland where I'm like, this can't be. This is just not a team I'm comfortable saying wins a lot of games. They didn't really have many changes here or there. They did get a guy, a pass rusher, interior guy that I really like, in Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State. So be interesting to see how that pans out for him.
How How do you feel about if they had Baker in there right now, Tony? And they had
I feel a lot better. I'm not gonna lie. I would have felt a lot better about the Browns the past couple of years if they would have just kept Baker.
So think about it. They get a few more first round picks over the last couple of years.
Financially, they're probably better.
They have money to spend on, any kind of weapon that became available or anything they want to do. I think that they might have made a huge mistake there, and the demands that Deshaun Watson made when he got dealt to the Browns, you better be the best quarterback in the league, man. I mean, come on.
The documentary, I hope I'm still alive, because at some point a documentary is going to come out about all this whole thing, how it worked out, conversations with lawyers, who knew what, who actually wanted it to happen. And because remember how uncomfortable Stefanski was, when the move first got announced, him and it's Andrew Barry, the general manager there, they just seemed very uncomfortable with everything, but the ownership was really bullish. So it's everything that's going to come out of this, whether it ends up good or bad, it's going to be extremely compelling, and I hope I get to watch it.
I don't know if you guys remember
that the Houston Texans got in the deal. When you actually go and look, they turned that whole franchise around.
Even more drama, Tony. I think I remember the news breaking that he had been dealt to the Falcons already before the Browns news. So maybe that was a last minute thing that the Browns did, where they were not going to do whatever it was, that last thing to get the deal done, and then at the last minute they said, you know what, call him back up before they finalize that. Let's get him.
A fully guaranteed contract is what got him.
It's probably what it is. It's probably what it is.
Which is
Atlanta.
Which is crazy.
Atlanta dodged a bullet.
You want my Browns record, Tony? Since we're on the Browns, I have them in third.
Go ahead.
9-8.
What is it?
9-8. I'm thinking the same thing as you. I have them just one win above the Steelers. And that one win is over the Steelers. So depending on how that game goes, that's how I'm determining last in the North this year. But Joe, what do you think about Cleveland?
The Browns be the Browns, right? Is what they always say. I'm not sold on that offense either. I'm not a big Deshaun Watson fan. I'm looking at their wide receivers, and Tony loves them, Elijah Moore and all that, and I'm there's still question marks there. But their defense has showed to be able to show up and win games for them. They're kind of just built just like the Steelers, I think, exactly the same way. But I'm giving the edge because I like their coaching staff. I like Jim Schwartz on defense. I like that Mike Vrabel's in there. I'm not 100% sold on Ken Dorsey, but hey, if he can get the wide receivers going, I'm good with that too. So it's not like I have the Browns. I have the Browns in third place, but I have them at 9-8, the same record as the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I have taken last spot. I don't know what the tiebreaker was when I was going through the games, but it had to be that because I know I had the series split between the Steelers and the Browns. So something it might have been division record right there, but I only have them at 9-8.
So Ken Dorsey's not going to call plays. That's why Alex Van Pelt went to the Patriots, because he knew he was going to get a coordinator job where he was going to get to call plays. So it's not I don't think Ken Dorsey's going to have a big issue. The one thing I think that's been interesting, and again, I said it on last week's show or a couple weeks ago, maybe on the fantasy show. I don't know if we've talked about it, but doesn't it seem like they're moving more towards a passing offense? If you watch the preseason games, there's just a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, and I don't really recall that in the past. And maybe that's, hey, we don't have Nick Chubb. Maybe our offensive line is getting a little bit older, and we also want to do something maybe that spreads it out, gives super easy reads for Deshaun Watson. It's he can kind of get back to being comfortable again instead of maybe playing as much under center, because Jerome Ford is a good back out of that sort of pistol or shotgun formation. He's going to be a good player from there. So it's maybe they switch things up, and I'm completely wrong, and the Browns are fantastic.
But the Browns are starting with a lot of injuries, right?
Yeah, they already have Coop. I think is already banged up. I'm not sure.
Did they held Watson out of the preseason game because of soreness, right?
Well, he gets held out for soreness all the time.
Well, but also too, I think there's a little bit of it's kind of the Giants. To me, there's no upside to play Daniel Jones in the preseason. But then again, Daniel Jones, hey, there's no upside, Daniel, to throwing some of those passes that you threw. It's just because the narrative gets out there, and as much as teams want to say that outside noise doesn't matter, unless your culture is really strong, that stuff permeates. Guys talk. We've all been around in locker rooms where you start hearing shit or whatever it is. Imagine that on a scale where the entire internet talks about you all day long.
Joe,
they know it. They hear it. No, I was just gonna say they know it, they hear it, they're in it, they live it.
And Joe, I didn't get a chance to text it to you in the chat, but you guys were talking about how they're not playing AOC in this preseason game. It's also because of that. They don't want AOC to go out there and throw for 350 yards.
That's exactly what I said to Joe. I was like, they do not want a controversy going into week one.
And it's just like AOC, the teams that do that, the Chargers, all of the Chargers, most of the time, they don't succeed as much as the teams that just do the smart thing. Don't care about what the fans say. So maybe Mr. Pierce there should just play AOC.
Hey, and the Browns are trading, or rumored to be trading the quarterback. What's his name? DTR.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of interest in him last year after the preseason, and they were able to keep him around on the roster. And I just think that the Browns would like to keep Huntley and Winston as the 3 quarterbacks this year. Like, they saw what happened last year when they went through so many quarterbacks, and if something similar happens, I think they want to be able to have veteran after veteran. And it's like, hey, we could go to Winston, and he could be Flacco last year, or he could be more like Flacco from the Jets. Like Flacco, since he's left the Ravens, has kind of been up and down. And last year was a major up, but it hasn't always been like that at all the stops. So I think that keeping 2 veterans would be the option there. I'm really hoping they cut Tyler Huntley and he comes to the Chargers.
That'd be so
let's dive in on the one team that we haven't talked about. And I actually kind of think this works out nicely for a couple of reasons. One, it's like they get the Bengals, I think, have gotten like more coverage than most teams this offseason because of Joe Burrow, because of Jamar Chase, and everything like that. It's like when I look at the Bengals, I think to myself, like, how is this team not just, no doubt about it, top of the AFC North? Like, do you just look at what they did or what they have on their roster, and then it's like, oh, it's the Bengals thing again. Like, they kind of washed the Bengals stink off of them for a minute, but then it's like, oh, but you're still the Bengals. Like, there's still something that's going to go wrong. There's still Jamar Chase isn't at practice. Like, how is it that Jamar Chase, you're going to pay him, correct, owner? So why aren't we just giving the contract that gets him there? Because it's 3 years in a row now that it's been Burrow injury in camp, Burrow injuries in camp. Now Chase is out. It's like, but Burrow's healthy. Just get them all back together. Like, they're legit. Their wide receiver room this year, I believe, is the best wide receiver room in football. From like 1 to 5 are all players that I think can ball in the NFL. And like maybe even 6. Like, I think Trent Irwin is, or whatever, is the crocodile hunter, whatever they're calling him. I think that guy's a good player. One thing I'll say, and then you guys could take it over on the Bengals. I thought one of the parts of the defense that looked kind of bad, what did I write down here? Bengals safeties. They brought back Von Bell and got Geno Smith from the Bengals. Like, they tried Dax Hill. He wasn't really working out there. Jordan Battle from Alabama didn't work out. They went and got safeties when they were really good with Jesse Bates and Von Bell. They let both those guys walk. They saw how that worked out. Von Bell's back, and they bring in Geno Stone. I think that's a big factor for them there. And I also like the young players they brought in on D-line. Chris Jenkins, another Michigan guy. Go ahead, Joe. What do you got? Bengals.
I was going to mention the same thing about the wide receiver set that I know what they say that Chase has been there, but he hasn't been practicing. Mm-hmm. But I like what I saw from Burton. I really like Burton this year. And I think if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, and we're 2 weeks away, and he's still healthy, could be the first season that we see Joe Burrow enter the season 100% or close to it. That should be a big change. I don't really have the Bengals like too far ahead. Like I said, I had the Steelers at 9-8. I have the Browns at 9-8. I have the Bengals in second place at 10-7. So it's not like I don't have a lot of people running away with the division, but I have the division being really close and really good. And the Bengals are just that. They find ways to win the game. I'm not. I know Tony likes Zach Moss, and some people. I don't know if you do, Mike, but I like Chase Brown. I think that he's going to break out this year. We saw we saw the Bengals and some of the youth that they had last year when they were forced to play him, and I think that helped them grow a little bit more as a team. But this division is so fucking hard to choose. Like, we could be 100% wrong on this division, and everybody else could be flip it. Just that's how good I think this division is. It's just that everybody is so good and well coached in this division.
Even if you're wrong, Joe, you can just pretend like you're right and just yell at me next year if you want.
Well, I figure that's the way to go. Like, like the Bengals are going to go 10-7, but there's a chance they could be really good, but there's also a chance that they could be really shitty. So I'm just saying that they're going to be right here.
You're hedging your bets here. I believe in the Bengals. I think when you look at the roster and you look at the depth chart, I have it pulled up right now. It's up there with the Ravens roster. I think they can compete with the Ravens for this division. It's just all about health. And I don't believe in the Ravens to stay completely healthy either, but we've seen them deal with the injuries a little bit better than we've seen the Bengals deal with the injuries. It seems like the Bengals kind of fall apart when it starts to happen. And I'm with you 100%, Tony. I don't understand the CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase thing. I don't understand what we're waiting on. Is it fully guarantees? Like, what is the problem with the Bengals and the Cowboys here that you guys need to see? Just give them Justin Jefferson's money plus $1, and that'll do it. That's what they're going to get at some point. So you might as well do it now before the price continues to go up. But I fully believe that the Bengals are kind of not all in this year to where it's going to fall apart completely, but this is the last year with T. Higgins. The Orlando Brown Jr. contract is aging. There's some guys on the defense, like you mentioned, Tony. Von Bell's aging a little bit. Mike Hilton, they still are relying on him, I think, out of the slot with like a Cam Taylor-Britt and somebody coming up as well. So I do think that the Bengals will be a little bit of a different team next year. It'll be a little bit of a different era for them. But if they get this Chase deal done, they'll be completely fine. Just no Higgins, obviously, next year. Because like you're saying, Jermaine Burton, he's going to be awesome. And then their wide receiver 3, I never figured out how to say his name. But he's a kid that no one's talking about that the Bengals love so much.
Andre Oshivash, he's big, fast, kid from Princeton. And then Charlie Jones, they drafted last year from Purdue. I think he's a little more talented.
Losing the rookie tackle is tough, but at least they have Trent Brown there, someone who's played that can fill in and like just try to hold on.
So I didn't follow how long.
I want to just say my record real quick. I had him at 11 wins. 11 wins.
How long was the Amarius Mims injury? Did you follow up on it?
He's questionable. I think he's questionable for week 1, probably coming back week 2 or 3.
Okay, because I didn't follow up to see how bad the injury was. I also didn't follow up to check in and see Trey Hendrickson. Did he ever get his contract situation resolved with the team? Because I think that's another big part. I'd like to see a player that I really liked from that draft that they got was Miles Murphy. It could be a big year for him there. I look at the Bengals team and I'm like, wait, why don't I have the Bengals right there winning the division again? Which when I checked my cards, I did actually have this last year. But this Bengals team is so where's the comment here? Kyle says new OC and disgruntled wide receiver core. It's like this comment right here is from a Ravens fan, but I was reading it and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. They do have a new OC. Now, Zach Taylor, I think, calls the plays, so maybe that's not as big of an issue. But it's like, what's there to be disgruntled about? You have Joe Burrow, and it's like, oh, it's an organizational thing. It seems to just be an ownership thing always.